Hello, Curiosities. My name is Kiri Callaghan, and you're watching Draw My Life. Wow, that's not a W. I'm not sure what I was doing there. Ahem. So normally we do just one of these, as least if I'm understanding what this tag basically is, but I didn't want to do that, so I decided to do multiple mini Draw My Lives. So welcome to Chapter 1. My Rogue Beginnings. Bitcha thought I was a bard this whole time, didn't ya? Nope. My parents met at Brigham Young University, as is the Mormon way to go about finding your eternal life partner, or whatnot, but had moved to Virginia so that my dad could do his medical residency, which is how I was born in Chippenham Hospital in Richmond, Virginia on April 21st, 1987. My dad had a mustache back then. It looked pretty much as ridiculous as this does. It was a Tuesday and fairly uneventful otherwise, unless you lived in Colombo, Sri Lanka, where a car bomb in a bus station killed over 100 people. Not great. Really horrible. I should mention this is something that I discovered many years later. It's not like the nurses and doctors were discussing this as they prepped my mom to have me. This was pre-internet, so most of America couldn't find Sri Lanka on a map, let alone know the moment when a bomb went off there. I'm getting off track. Because my dad was pretty much a fully formed doctor, they let him catch me in the OR, which is pretty awesome. I was born a third, which is a reference to the Ender's Game series if you're not familiar. And if I'm being really honest with myself, my relationship to my siblings was kinda eerily similar. But that's a story for another time. From there, we moved to Pueblo, Colorado, which I have zero memory of, but it was near a lot of my mom's family. My brother and sister went briefly to South Park Elementary, and no, not that South Park Elementary, but, for all I know, there could have been some inspiration there. My first memory that I distinctly remember as being mine and not something someone told me was moving into our house in Aberdeen, Washington. I was about 4, maybe a bit younger, and I remember I had this bright purple dinosaur stuffed animal. It was not Barney. I hated Barney. To this day, I am still deeply unnerved by people in animal suits. I think it's the dead button eyes. Super creepy. This dinosaur toy was called a Dino Roar. It was made of a kind of parachute material, and being the creative genius that I was, I named him Purpley. Because I was freaking 4 and just learning colors, okay? One thing I distinctly remember about him is that he had this weird squeaky toy-like quality. You could squeeze him up into a ball and he made this weird sort of sound that honestly wasn't pleasant. And when you released him, he made this funny wheeze as he reinflated as if gasping for air, It was probably the stupidest toy ever to give a 4-year-old. And while he was not my favorite stuffed animal, I absolutely adored him. I remember falling asleep on the floor of our playroom as the movers put boxes of toys around us. Purpley made weird wheezes of anguish anytime I moved. One thing I will never forget when I asked my mom about my childhood is that she said if I'd been the first child, I would have been the only child. I would like to believe that this is because I was so freaking awesome, my parents would have been convinced they never could do better. But I think it was more of a, seriously, why did we think kids were a good idea? This thing is driving me crazy kind of scenario. I was a really independent kid. No wasn't really a denial for permission so much as it was a declaration that I would have to do it myself. I learned to climb at about 10 months, including stacking chairs in order to get on the counter. You know that first scene in Roger Rabbit where Baby Herman really wants that cookie? Apparently it was like that. I was that kid. This rebellious self-reliance often got me into trouble, and even resulted in a few broken laws. I had a thief phase. I was, by no stretch of the imagination, the artful dodger, but I got really good at sneaking things into my pockets. Usually candy, sometimes toys. Once or twice, money from my mom's purse. It all came to a head pretty much when I snuck an entire Little Sister Kelly doll home, out of the box. I told my mom that I wanted to look at the toys while she shopped for all the boring stuff, and on the way I would grab a picture book. I would locate my target, always on the bottom shelf, or I'd move it to the bottom shelf, set it behind me, and sit cross-legged with a book on my lap and my back to the toy shelf. As surreptitiously as possible for a 6-year-old, while pretending to be engrossed in the book, I broke into the Barbie box and untwisted her from her confines, all behind my back. When I had successfully freed her from the box, she was slipped up my sleeve. I also managed to sneak home a pack of Starbursts. When we got home, I skipped up to my room to play with my new toy, gleeful and triumphant. And then my mom caught me. My mom has far too much an eye for detail to know, first of all, that that doll was not one of mine, and second of all, I didn't cover up the Starburst fast enough when she came in. I was busted. My mom took me back to the store and had me apologize to the security officer on duty. I was so upset I started crying, thinking I was going to go to jail. The officer was a very nice woman. She comforted me, and my mom paid for both the doll and the Starburst, but I didn't get to keep either, obviously. And it was explained to me more or less why stealing was bad. I don't remember exactly what she said, but I think she mentioned how inventory came back to bite the employees, and that made me feel so guilty. But a year later, I stole a pack of Bazooka bubblegum on a dare from a friend. And then she told on me to my parents. Betrayer. And I remember my dad confronting me by asking if I'd brought shame to the family. No, really. Did you bring shame upon the family name was a legitimate question posed to a 7-year-old. But, to his credit, it worked. Never swiped anything again. Also never trusted that friend again. 2 lessons learned. At only 7, too. I think it worked mainly because I had no real concept of legal authority or government, but I hella respected my father. And that is my sordid beginnings on how I went from a rogue to a bard. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next chapter soon.